Hey guys, what is going on? U-Rounder here. All right, back. Just wanted to make sure I turned off my air filter so that hopefully there's no real background noise. All right, what's going on? So I think I uploaded 1 or 2 videos today and recorded another, and now I'm recording another one. So man, I put in some volume today. Let me go give you the stats on the volume. I have played for 7 hours, so I'm gonna try to play for about 1 more hour. Even 8 hours, not bad, not bad. 8 hours of poker. Right now, I'm running awesome. I'm up like $400, and yeah, figured I'd put up 400 no limit tables, and we'll play some just straight up 100 no limit, and talk through some stuff you guys can probably see. I've got I've got a few little hotkeys for my Table Tamer stuff, and then I've got a couple notes for me to remind myself not to do certain things because come on, Table Tamer, get your shit together. Whoa, what is this? Why? Come on. Uh-oh. I hope it's working. That would be kind of a bummer if it wasn't. There we go. That clicked in. All right. Some of it's working. Sometimes just like a random table won't get picked up. But that's okay. $2 is actually the correct bet size, so that may not be the software. Oh, let me turn down the sound a bit. Hopefully you guys can't hear that too much in the background. And yeah, let's talk a little bit. So, like I said, I've been implementing some new strategies. They've been going pretty well so far. The number one thing I would say, like, it's just amazing. I mean, like really, especially like the last video I did, which I haven't uploaded yet, but will probably be uploaded before this one comes out. Was the fact that I can have like this note up and still make bad calls on the river. I just need to get over, well, a couple things. One is, I make the money in other ways, right? Like, people don't like when a fish or even a reg is, the way that I'm going to make a lot of my money against them isn't going to be by bluff catching. It's going to be mainly when they don't understand the value of their hand and call me too light, or when, right, I mean, yeah, that's the main thing, or when they decide to make a bluff where I have too much value or something like that, and sort of understanding that is just something I need to get a little bit better at. We get called here on table 2. Well, we get a bet and then we get a raise, so I guess I'm gonna go away with ace 10. God, I love the Table Tamer. Boom, topped up right away. Kings versus ace 10. I don't love that ace 10 raise, but it's okay. This guy called. Nothing's really changed here, obviously. So I think we're just going to give up. This is a spot where I would like bet and get called by like ace 6 or something stupid occasionally. King, yeah, I mean, or king 10. I mean, king 10's a perfectly reasonable call, though. 5-6 suited is a little light under the gun, but that's okay. Don't know anything about this guy, so we'll just 3-bet with ace 9 suited. One thing I have started doing is just really opening up my pre-flop ranges. Certainly makes things a little bit more challenging post-flop. Not really, not necessarily more challenging, but I definitely see a lot more flops, and so I can see whether or not a lot of my strategies are working or not. This guy just pots it on the flop, which is sort of a weird spot to pot it. It's tempting to just come over the top and jam, but let's call here. And if he pots it, I guess we have to fold. I don't remember. But if he bets anything like smaller, I'm just going to come over the top because our range looks really strong when we call that flop. 29, I'm just going to jam it in. Time down like 3 or 4 seconds. And I mean, he can definitely have big value hands, but he can also have like bluffs here and fold. Yeah. Just took it down with ace high. That's a big pot. Whew. Got my heartbeat going a little bit on that one. We would have hit the flush on the river too, which potentially could have made for an even bigger pot. What's going on here? Yep. So one data point to think about is that players are not bluffing the turn enough. I was watching one of the hand reviews that Nick Howard was doing, and it was actually, I was watching him on Twitch, and so I was actually commenting in the chat on like, oh, like, can't this guy have flush draws here on the turn? And everyone was just like, no, like, what are you talking about? Like, nobody's raising a flush there on the turn. Like, I didn't really say anything, but I was thinking like, I'm raising flushes there on the turn. Like, I'll jam a flush. I mean, it can't be that bad. But that's the thing, is that the majority of players, especially regs, just do not interpret turn raises as bluffs for whatever reason. And so to me, that means that, occasionally against regs, you might want to be, bluffing the turn a little bit more. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily like 100% correct, but that was sort of my baseline interpretation of that information. And yeah, I have actually gotten a decent number of folds on the turn, even when players look pretty strong. They're going to be able to lay down some big hands. Actually, let's mark that hand for review. That way we can go back later on and see what our opponent actually laid down, if they had a hand or not. The other thing they can have is draws. And, it's not always a bad thing to just get somebody to lay down a decent draw if that's what they have. Now, another interesting piece of data that I've been kind of thinking about, looking at, etc., is fold to flop raise. The amount of folds that you get with flop raises are very high. And one of the leaks that I had when somebody looked at my raw statistics, like HUD statistics, is they were like, wow, your fold to raise is really low. Like, you don't fold enough to raises. People aren't raising that late, and you should probably be folding more. So, so one, I started folding to raises more, but two, I started realizing like, okay, like, I probably am not calling raises because I sort of see things through my lens, and I'm like, oh, these guys can be raising with all these draws and gut shots and combo backdoor draws or whatever else, because that's the type of stuff I do. And it made me realize, like, all right, so one, I should continue raising very aggressively on the flop. So one, raise aggressive on the flop with draws and with like nutted hands. And then two, if people are over folding to flop raises, then like it really polarizes their range on the next two streets. So like, see, here's the spot. I'm just not like, there's no way I'm folding here. I mean, this guy, again, we just saw that this guy can be kind of aggressive, and like, that's just a weird, like, people aren't often raising their queens there, and then he checks back, or then he checks it to us on the turn. I don't see a ton of value in betting here, and we have the blocker to the straight, so let's check back here and call a bet on the river, and then we can call a more reasonably sized bet. Now, here's a spot where, like, even if he somehow comes up with a better hand, I think calling is correct. Yeah, I think we're so what? 9, king 9. The time bank's clicked. So let me think for a second. I mean, he can have diamonds. We block the straights. Yes, he could have raised a queen, but I'm not really sure why he would raise the queen and then check it. It doesn't really make that much sense. And then he clearly just mashed. This is actually a little bit more than the pop button. Don't call large bets on turn and river. This guy just got blown off a hand by us. God damn it. I don't know why. I don't know why I can't do it. Give me a second. I will recover from this and I will keep going. And we'll have a good session. I have some sort of just mental block that is... It's... like, this isn't a poker skill issue that I have. This is a mental game issue. Like, just clear-cut mental game leak. That I have this fear of getting blown off a hand. Like, this horrible fear of getting bluffed. And I don't exactly... I mean... I can probably reconcile it logically, right? I can just say, well, I'm not going to care if I get bluffed if I'm, winning, $30 or $40 an hour when I play. And that's true. But to get to that point, I need to stop making those calls. And I just am not seeing bluffs there, and I'm still imagining that players are doing it light. I don't know what to put here or to... I don't know what I need to do to get myself to just be okay with either one, folding, knowing like, all right, I'm beat here and I can fold and awesome. Like, I'm getting away from a hand because I have this information that people aren't bluffing enough here and I can fold jacks and it's no big deal and it's awesome. But that doesn't really happen because I am so worried that I'm getting bluffed or getting like outplayed. And I don't like the idea of getting outplayed or, getting bluffed off of a hand or somebody playing better than me. And so that's the sort of fear aspect of why I think, not sure 100%, but I think that's why I have trouble folding a hand like that. So I'm not 100% sure how to get around that. Obviously, these types of things aren't quite doing it. I don't know. The other thing, so that's the one thing that could be a good answer would be to realize whether or not my range is capped and to realize whether or not my range is protected. So these are concepts that I can recognize when I do an actual like real breakdown analysis of a hand. In game, not as good. So that's something that I need to work on. So I want to work on being aware of my range. Protected, capped. Okay. So I mean, those are the two main, like either our range is like sort of protected because we can have the nuts, or it's capped and we don't. All right, so let me grab that hand and we'll look at it real quick. Pocket jacks. All right. So this guy's an 18-12. We're still going to 3-bet with ace king. All right, so we just folded lower left. All right. All right, so we are, we're uncapped, right? We raised under the gun. So boom, right there, like data point 1 in this hand. This is what I want to be able to do when I go through a hand, is think about like, all right, what are the key important pieces of information that we need to use to make a decision here? So like number 1, we can have pocket aces, pocket queens, pocket jacks, ace queen, king queen, pocket queens. I don't know if I already said that or not. But we can have like queen jack. We can have all of the really strong hands here. Pocket eights. We can have it all. All right. So, all right, we get raised on the flop. So, all right, data point 2. We just talked about it. Players don't raise the flop often enough. Data point 3 is I don't fold to the flop raise often enough. But that's also another piece of data. Like, players are not raising flops all that often. And so it is heavily weighted towards value. I think part of the problem so this is a sizing that definitely could be a bluff. I'm going to fold because I just have ace high. But this is a sizing that absolutely can be a bluff and could be like an ace queen or an ace jack or something like that. This like third pop. I'm going to fold because it also could be something like ace 9 or whatever. Let's go ahead and raise ace 8 here. Okay, so we're starting to put some stuff together on this hand. I apologize if this is a little confusing, but I don't think it's that bad. Where's the next hand? So let's I'm gonna fold 9s. So we've got a bet, a call, a squeeze. We haven't seen this player do this yet. We've got 2 players to act behind. This guy's still uncapped. He could come back over the top. So we're gonna actually muck our 9s pre-flop. And we'll raise here, fold here. Okay, so next data point is, okay, so we're uncapped. We can have queens here. We can have pretty much anything. And we have a player raising us. And players don't raise the flop enough. Okay. Now, I'm not sure what him checking back really does to his range. I don't think it really like caps his range or anything. I would expect a lot of players that raise the flop to continue on the turn. But the situation is still the same. Now, this is when we check back, I'm a little confused. Like now I'm actually like, I'm not exactly sure how this works, because once we check back, it's, I mean, very, like now I think we probably are more likely to be capped. Like, right? I mean, unless we're checking back with something like Queen 10 or pocket queens, then it seems like we would almost always be betting the turn there. But maybe I'm wrong. Now, let me know what you think on that part. I remember, I mean, this has been an issue for a while, because I remember like years ago when I was studying with somebody, and when they would bet like pot on the river after checking the turn, I remember, for some reason this sticks out in my mind, I remember like going through a hand with somebody and they were like, well, what does it mean? What does it mean when somebody pots the river? It means they're trying to get back value that they lost on the turn. And that, I mean, that was like 8 years ago. That was like 8 years ago, and I still haven't figured this out. But that's, I mean, that's the thing. Like, he check raised the flop. I guess he's going for a check raise on the turn as well. And so that's a thing. So I don't know. This is a weird hand. This is definitely a hand I'd like to review. But I think we have enough data points to know that we can fold the river, right? Like, we have enough information to know that we don't have anything like screaming like that this should be a call. This isn't like this doesn't look like a fish after the 12 hands we had with him at the time. So most likely, we just say like, okay, players don't raise the flop enough. Players don't bet big on the river as a bluff enough. And when they, do bet big on the river after checking the turn, a lot of times it's not a bluff. It's because they were hoping to get more value on the turn. Oops. Okay, I'm done talking about that hand. Sorry. I apologize if that was like way confusing and too much info for a live session, but I'm not sure how much protected and capped came in there. I don't think that us checking back on the turn, I think checking back on the turn made us a little bit capped. With the way I play, I definitely was. But yeah, I think that those are, I wonder if that's something that would help me more. Instead of like trying to tell myself what to do. Oops, why didn't that bet? Is to just put some like information here. So and by often enough, what I mean is as much as optimal would dictate. Now, I think when we check back here, right, we're capped. Like, we're capped when we check back on the turn. I don't know. Maybe I'm using that wrong. Maybe I'm like a little bit off on my understanding of what capped actually means. I mean, I know what capped means. It means like we can't have like a hand higher than like, a certain, like our hand can only be so strong. And pre-flop, it's really easy, right? When you call, your range becomes capped because aces, ace king, and kings and things like that, like they are going to continue to raise until they're called by someone else. So if you're the last raiser, you are uncapped. Post flop, I mean, that doesn't necessarily always work because sometimes people will just flat call with the nuts. Like that's a perfectly reasonable strategy post flop. So that's something I need to get a little bit of a better understanding of. I'm going to actually write that down so I can talk to some people about that. All right, took that note. That's something I need to clear up. So here's another approach, is just writing down things that are definitely true and going from there. And then I can hopefully use something like players do not raise flop and turn often enough. Often enough as bluff. Players do not bluff the river often enough. I don't know. I'm trying to frame it in a way that I'll be more comfortable making the right play. Because that, I mean, like, that's really bad, right? Like, that's a really bad mental game leak when I can literally, like, highlight this in the middle of the hand and be like, well, this guy's betting really big on the river, and I know I'm not supposed to call big bets with, light on the river, and I still make the call. That's kind of gross. I'm kind of upset about that. Not like upset about the money, or I'm just upset that I can't, for some reason, that's this just very difficult mental block that I'm having trouble getting through. And it just continues to cost me buy-ins, and I don't like that because I want to keep all my buy-ins. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk strategy. I mean, eventually I'll be just such a nit that I will just fold everything on the river. And that wouldn't be that bad. Like, I'm going to filter, when this session's done, I'm going to filter for river calls. And I'm going to check and see what my opponents are doing on the river. I feel, so yeah, so once we check back, we can bet here. So I remember watching, I've played every form of poker. Like, I've tried to get I've done like serious heads up study. I've done serious sit and go study. I've done serious heads up sit and go study. I've done cash game study. I've done multi-table tournament study. I have pretty much tackled all forms of no limit hold'em except for the new ones. Whatever it's called there. What's it's like a sit and go with 3 people that's winner take all. Spin and goes. I've played a couple of spin and goes, but I haven't studied spin and goes or like gotten into spin and goes. Every other form of poker I've tackled pretty aggressively in the past with success here and there. Where was I going with this? Quickly. Oh, I remember watching a coach make a video a long time ago. I think it was on Stocks Poker, but don't quote me on that. And he was playing heads up sit and go, and he had this strategy where he would just min bet. Like, he would min bet every single opportunity, like every single time that the action was on him, he would just make a min bet. And that was his only strategy. He would just continue min betting until the opponent showed aggression, and then he would make a decision. And like he went through a few and like actually like won a few heads up sit and goes with this strategy. And it just showed like how difficult it is to deal with aggression. And then also like the fact that, you know, when people do respond to that aggression, then, you know, things become a lot more clear. Here. Let's check raise this. We've got the pair, plus we've got some backdoor straight, backdoor flush, and I'm trying to raise flops a lot. So this might not be the best one, but it's a pretty good turn. Obviously going to continue. I think half pot's good here. After we raise half pot here, that'll be 60. So that'll be 80 and we'll have 60 left. There we go. We would have had a pair of tens. This guy's 14-0, so we're just going to raise like it's our button. This table is terrible. I mean, these guys are kind of loose aggressive, but I mean, that's not like easy loose aggressive. That's like difficult to play against players. We're at 31 minutes. I feel like I killed a lot of time with that one mistake. I am going to upload this. I'm like frustrated with myself, but I feel like I'm pretty transparent to you guys on the old YouTube channel. So I don't pretend to be like perfectly balanced and have like complete Zen abilities at all. And yeah, it's I don't know. Maybe somebody will have a really like maybe somebody will say something in the comments or do have some comment that's just like so incredible and eye-opening that I somehow completely fix this mental game leak. We're going to keep barreling. Players fold turns a lot, more than they should. So we're going to barrel. Plus, we've got plenty of equity. We're open-ended. And we're still open-ended. So I'm not looking to make some like real hero call on Jack River. But we're getting really good odds here, right? Like we're getting 3-1. And if we bink, then we're in pretty good shape. The heart's interesting too if he checks. If he checks on the heart, we could definitely throw out a pretty big bluff. He does not check. That makes our decision really easy. So look at this, 44. I'm going to mark this hand too, just because I want to see what he has. Like I just want to prove to myself, just make like a little note. Take a look. We just fold there. Because I think that there's very little chance that he's doing that light, especially after raising the turn. Like there's just point after point going towards that is a very strong hand. All right. I want to get a few more hands in. Obviously, that was a pretty easy fold because we didn't have anything, but I obviously would have folded a jack there as well. Oh, I want to get a new table. This table over here is not. Whoa. Had ace queen suited get all in here. Side pot, I guess. But looks like a big side pot. Jesus. Oh, $23. That's how. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay. Raises ace king. So this guy's got like a 59% range, but he min raised pre-flop. It's nice to take that down. Like, that's a nice pot to just sort of take down with ace high. But he's, I'm guessing, not folding too many 3-bets, so he's probably getting, like, got too wide a range there. I'm going to fold. I don't really want to play out of position against somebody who's, like, never folding to steal. I adjusted my table tamer setting to do 2.5x on the button from, I was doing, so this is kind of weird. Cold 4-bet 24 is okay. If he comes back over the top, I think I'm finding a fold here with ace king, even ace king pre. Here's why. Like, yeah, we've only seen 43 hands, but he's only raised 9% and he's never 3-bet. And this guy is also like not looking particularly loose. So he flat calls. So, I mean, yeah, like players can do that. Like, I don't think he's doing that with aces or kings. I think he's just going all in. So I'm going to actually put him on like queens, jacks, tens. And obviously we're just going to fold now. But I would bet $49 or so that he, oh no, we would have got there. That's okay. Okay, let's get a new table going. I'm going to play for, like I said, like another 20 minutes, and I'll just leave the video running till I end the session. I want to get some more good discussion. Wow. There's tons of tables going right now. I really do need to probably adjust my schedule so that I'm staying up a little bit later. I like being, you know, an early riser and getting to sleep early and then getting up early. But at the same time, if a lot of players are on and the games are relatively good in the evenings, then, you know, I should adjust slightly for that. Hand is still open. Oh, it's saying this session started at 8:26. Okay. Did take a little bit of a break, but I guess I've been going for a while. Take the equity off since we're running really we're running really above equity. Actually, that's fine. I'll leave it on. I was talking to my buddy Tyler the other day, or today actually, and telling him that I was running above equity a lot recently, and he thought that was pretty cool since he's like, yeah, I remember like every single time I saw a graph or every single time we talked, you were like almost always running below equity. So obviously we know that that's not like a real thing, that just because you run bad does not mean you're ever going to run good. That's not how math works. But it does feel nice to actually run above equity, because I do feel like in the past I've run below equity pretty often. But what's really cool is I've played 1,700 hands today, almost 8 hours, and check out that red line. Pretty good, right? Yeah. So my red line is doing a lot better. Now, some of that is due to some bad calls. Like, you know, my red line would be down a lot more here had I folded to these big hands that I lost. I guess it's just like one or two, but anyway. This guy is not folding a lot. Well, I only have 48 hands. He's only been 3-bet once. Damn. We're playing 18-13 over a few hands. I suppose we're supposed to fold here with sixes, but I mean, like, pretty good odds. I guess we can call just a spike a set, right? Oof, so close. Let's go ahead and bet like 20, 19. All right, I'd say we're done. Even if he has like kings, I doubt he would fold. And now that he could have like queens full, he also has probably some aces in his range. I think that bet's okay on the turn, but I think we're done now. Probably just has a lot of ace-king in his range as well. like Not sure if I'm supposed to be calling pre-flop there with sixes either. That's like $44 that we maybe didn't need to lose. Yeah, I don't know if we really have the odds to call with sixes there. I don't think we're deep enough, really. Definitely have a interesting mix of opponents. At 100 no limit. We've got everything from the 6310 guy, a whole bunch of regulars, and then a bunch of nits. 17-8. Although not as many. Like, I mean, 19-9. So there's some pretty nitty players. And then there's some pretty loose players. And then there's, you know, a lot of regulars. And some of the regulars we're going to be exploiting a little bit with just some of our baseline, our sort of default strategy. But, you know, if we do exploit them, it's not going to be by a lot. And some of the better ones might actually exploit us, theoretically, right? Like, not through, I mean, they might exploit us for being exploitative. Yeah, until I stop calling the river bluffs, they aren't going to exploit me. But I like, in general, that's what we would worry about, is like some of the better regulars that are capable of making decent bluffs sometimes exploiting us on the river. But the thing is that is rarely happening. Like all day today, like I have not called a big river bet that was a bluff. And when I have, and it's like been correct, like I'll find some. I'll filter for, called river true, and I'll do a whole video tomorrow. I don't know what Lyft is doing, some promotion tomorrow. So I got to get out and drive. Like I'm going to try to get out and drive quite a bit tomorrow because they are doing some sort of special promotion, Christmas thank you to all the drivers. So I got to make sure I get out tomorrow and drive. But what I'm going to do tomorrow is like go through and figure out how to filter for that in my database and like go through some of those hands. And we'll like, no kidding, go through and be like, all right, well, how many times was, even though my database isn't that big, it's not that many hands. It should be big enough to get an idea that we're not really, I don't know, for some reason, maybe I have to see it. Maybe if I actually see like, okay, this like really, really isn't happening. I see it with my own two eyes. Like it's just not happening. Players just aren't making those bluffs. And like, also study the times that they did do it. Study the situations where, okay, this player did actually make a big bluff on the river. Those situations are often going to be a little bit different than than the times that that they're showing up with the nuts. I mean, there are situations where like everything works and everything makes sense that it's a bluff. But those are, for some reason, when I'm in those situations, I feel like it's crystal clear. Like I feel that I have very little confusion or ambiguity over whether or not I should call. I'm like ready to call. I've sort of, maybe it's like a flow state thing where I'm, interpreting their actions really well, and it excuse me. Yeah, so like I'm interpreting their actions really well, and I make the call, and like I'm, almost sure that they're going to turn over a bluff. When I'm sitting here like hemming and hawing and like being like, oh, there's a big bet, I'm not supposed to call light, like that's not a situation where I'm going to feel like I'm not in my A state of mind when that's my thought process. And so those times where I call and it is correct, I feel like it's very correct. And it's very different than the times that I'm calling because I just, some of it could just be that like, it could be as simple as like, there's a lot of money in the middle and I don't want to lose it. I think it's more to do with I don't want to be outplayed, and I have a fear of getting outplayed. I have a fear of, because there are plenty of times throughout a session when somebody will bet and they'll turn over a bluff, and like that I don't really care about that much most of the time. Like usually they're not like massive bets. Occasionally somebody will make some like big bet and then like, show it, but like those guys are just such fish anyway that it doesn't really stress me out. So yeah, that'll be another session. We'll go through and just look at river calls, and maybe actually going through a bunch of river calls will help me kind of sort out some of the spots where it makes sense, some of the spots where it doesn't make sense, why that is, and what I can do moving forward to try and make some better decisions. Just another, like, I remember I used to, one of the sort of little mental tricks that I would do is, I think I probably have videos where I talk about this, where I say, look, if I make this call, am I going to be totally comfortable with it, or am I going to be upset with it? And that was sort of my way of thinking, like, look, is this something where I'm going to call and immediately be pissed off like I was on the one earlier? Or am I going to call and say, like, okay, like, no problem. That's a very small part of his range, very unlikely. Also, realistically, that probably isn't always going to be a great excuse, because even if hands are a small part of somebody's range, you know, when they take certain actions and we get to a certain point and they're betting a certain size on the river, all of a sudden that hand becomes a much bigger part of their range. So yes, there are still times where it's like very, very unlikely, and so you kind of have to call because you just can't really like wrap your head around it. But there are other times where it's like, yeah, that's really unlikely, but given their actions, it actually, you know, due to the fact that they've taken those actions, it becomes more likely than it otherwise would. It's a big bet. We don't really know anything about this guy. He's betting pretty large, and he doesn't, like, it would suck to, like, if we raise and then he jams. I guess we would have to call. Let's call and then see what he does on the turn. Bets very small. Let's go ahead and raise the turn. Let's make it like 18, 16, 17, 50. I wonder if he has a draw. Really? It's betting a third of the pot, or yeah, you bet a third pot. So that's not a big bet, and this is a fish. And King Jack seems like a big part of his range. This one I'm just gonna look up. Yeah, that one's different. That one is a lot different than the other ones we're talking about. Like, like that guy, you can't, even though it's only 10 hands, you can't play 89-11 and not be a fish, even in 10 hands. It just, it can't happen, right? It can't happen. So that is a very different situation than where was like, it was somebody like, wow, there's not a lot of regs on the tables right now. There's like a lot of like nit regs, but there's not a lot of like tag. There's not a lot of Mias out there. There's not a lot of 29, 26s, 2011, 2010, 17-8, 45-18. There's one, 22. Like, if it was this guy making that play, then, like, maybe that's a fold. But from a fish, I think that one's I'm pretty okay with. Maybe being results-oriented a little bit, but I think it's, you know, results do matter. That's the guy that 4-bet us and took a pretty nice size pot off us. Yeah, that was a big mistake. We shouldn't have been calling there with 6s. I don't know why I was thinking that was okay. We're not anywhere near deep enough for that. All right. Let's Alt S, sit out next big blind, all tables. And it's going to be like an hour video. I said I was going to look something up at the end. I always say that. I need to write that down from now on when I say, like, oh, I'll show you this thing at the end. we already looked at one hand. We already did a like hand review session after the last video. So I think I'm going to, oh, that's right. I decided pretty much, I was saying like, oh, I'll look at, Called River, but I'm going to do that tomorrow. I'm going to go through and look at, I'll even write that down. So filter Called River. All right, so that's going to be a video tomorrow. I'm going to go through. This guy looks pretty aggressive. I mean, Jack 4 is kind of the nuts, so we'll still raise. There's probably some really embarrassing calls in that filter if I look at it. Like I'm probably going to find like hundreds of dollars, if not like thousands of dollars that I've lost on plays like you saw tonight where I just call way too light. I have a very strong imagination. What can I say? It's very easy for me to imagine players doing crazy things that they most likely aren't doing. And the other thing I really need to make sure that I'm clear on is the difference between the different player types, right? Like, yes, it's anonymous, but we do get a few hands. We're not playing Zoom or Zone where we have like zero information every hand. So we do have information, and that does affect things, like whether it's and I don't know exactly how each player models and what the tendencies are of each player, but there are definitely conclusions we can draw from a little bit of information on players as to what type of mistakes they might be making or what type of things they may be, how they might be playing outside of optimal. Whereas like, your sort of your average player, your reg, your 2013, your 2111, even the 2919, most of the time, isn't going to be making a large bet on the river as a bluff. Right? Most of the time, like that's just not going to be what they're doing. And then, even the guy that fish, like if that reg made that bet, I would think, oh, he's got like, a weak top pair and he's trying to milk me for value. And maybe that makes it a fold. Whereas when a fish does it, it's like, a scared bluff. Like, all right, or some weird bet where they're like, I don't really know what to do. I know I can't win with 10 high, so I'll bet like $13. Whereas if I somehow ended up in that spot with 10 high, I'd be like, let me just overbet like 1.25 times the pot. All right, looks like we're about done. Okay, guys, that's going to do it. I'll probably upload this video tomorrow, and maybe I'll actually get a stockpile of videos that are ready to be uploaded. That would be nice, and then I can put videos out on the weekends and stuff as well. I guess if I'm going to play for 8 hours a day, that makes it a lot easier to get some content out there. Once these are gone, I am going to pull Poker Tracker over and we'll look at some results and some info. Whoops. Oh, we went past midnight, so now it's on to the next day. So I need to do since Tuesday. Took a little bit of a dip at the end from our peak. We were up 450 at one point today. Took a little bit of a dip down, but that's okay. So a 32-11, right? Like we think they're probably going to be a little bit wide. So actually, I don't mind barreling the turn here. A 10 does give us a straight, so it's not like we have 0 outs. And then once they call that turn, if they do have a flush draw, like if they have like 8-9 of clubs, we already win. But most likely we're going to see Queen 9, something along those lines. King Jack, yeah. So, I mean, he does call with third pair on the turn with a gut shot, but that's okay. Would he have folded if we, fired the river? Most likely, perhaps, but would he have folded if it was like Queen 9? Not as confident with that. So, like that play, I'm not upset with at all. Even though it didn't work out perfectly, for some reason I feel like Table Tamer's not like catching this table. It's doing the automatic. It didn't auto rebuy, but it did when I clicked buy more chips. Like I didn't have to click any buttons, so I don't know what that's all about. Hotkeys and stuff are working. Anyway, that's it. All right, let's go over here. So this is today. So I did since 12/13, which is yesterday. So you can see this is my foray into 200 NL. That was fun. So I did play some 200 NL. I played 127 hands. 1785 was down quite a bit in EV. That's where I lost all my EV. And not only EV, but I also I reviewed those hands in another video. But yeah, I just made some really bad calls. Bad calls are like the number one leak that I've got. If we go to my graph, I mean, this is kind of nice that my red line's not too bad. I suppose my red line should be a little bit worse. Like I said, either earlier or in another video, this loss doesn't affect my red line at all. So instead of losing 61, I maybe would have lost like 30 here instead of losing, going from 173 to minus 50. So instead of losing like 200 or whatever that is, 200 or something, yeah, maybe I would have lost like 70 in red line, right? So my red line, would be worse, but overall I'd be doing better. Maybe at the stakes I'm playing, a break-even red line is not ideal, and maybe it should be slightly losing, and that's okay. Once I start making some of those folds, we'll see what it looks like. But I think that is my number one leak right now, is just calling too many bets on the river. But the good news, what I'm really happy about, honestly, is just the volume. So I've got, I've got 8 hours today. That's pretty good. 8 hours of poker is not bad. And yeah, my EV is only $100. I don't know. How do I add? There's somewhere. Double click. Configure. Oh, here we go. Adjusted. All in. My currency game. So I wanted hourly. Okay, well, anyway. I guess we can just sort of interpolate it, but so this came out to $50 an hour, but we are doubling, right? So our BB per 100. So I guess because we ran bad at 200 NL, our BB per 100 isn't nearly as off as our actual money would be. So anyway, it's kind of hard to tell, but I don't know. I think I can probably consistently, if I plug some of these leaks, I think $30 an hour at 100 NL is reasonable. I think that's pretty attainable. So, I mean, if I look again, I've been running pretty well since I mean, not that well. My all-in adjusted EV is still, I'm still running at 12 BB per 100 adjusted since I started adopting some of these changes. And you see how big some of the mistakes I'm making are. Like, I am making big mistakes, and I'm still hitting 12 BB adjusted. I mean, over a very small sample, but you know, it's better than if it was down, right? That's anyway, I'm rambling a little bit. I apologize. If you guys like the video, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned. I think the next video I do is going to be some like database work and going through some hands and stuff like that. So if you like that kind of thing, definitely stay tuned. And if not, I'm sure I'll have another live play video coming out very shortly. See you guys tomorrow. Till then, keep on grinding.